Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about scaling Agile and I'm going to host this session. My name is Matt Brook, I run the professional services team for Appian in Europe, based in the UK. And I'm joined with a number of co-presenters who are going to take you through some of their reflections and learnings. Colleagues from GSA, the US government, and then also Duncan, Macdonald, one of my team in London. So a number of different presenters who are going to give different observations and hopefully something for everyone in the room and that's helpful. I'm sure we've got people here who are seasoned Agile practitioners who know the Scrum textbook inside out. We might have some people who really don't know much about Agile at all, maybe business people, maybe technical people, probably a whole mix. So we're hoping that between the four of us this afternoon, you'll all get something that's helpful to you in whatever role you're in. So let's get going. For those of you who aren't so familiar with Agile, and then we often use the word Scrum interchangeably. Agile is a philosophy, a way of delivering IT projects, and often contrasted with waterfall, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Scrum is a particular methodology, a particular set of processes and practices and operational mechanisms for running an Agile-based project. So forgive us if we use the two interchangeably because they're often used quite similarly. The idea with Agile, as you can see from the cartoon at the top or the animation at the top, and many of you may well have seen this previously, rather than spending a long time to build the car and you have no form of transport until that car is fully built, you evolve and iterate through stages of transport capability. So from a scooter, or a skateboard to a scooter to a bicycle to a motorbike to the car. And that's a very simple way of illustrating the Agile progression and journey, but it sums up the essence of not the big bang, design everything, build everything, test everything, finally deploy everything, but more to an incremental approach to regularly building and releasing working software to your end users. It's a methodology that we in Appian have been practicing and advocating and leading with in our engagements for many years now, and one that we've got plenty of experience with that Duncan's going to share with us shortly. So you can see the comparison on the side there on the screens, and Agile works best for needing progress at speed. And it really aligns nicely with the Appian product capability, the ability to incrementally evolve and add features and functionality to an Appian application, as you'll know as well. So it's a really nice complementary methodology to the technology that we also provide. This is a slide that I think sums up the benefits to the way that projects are delivered really well. So if the grey shaded areas of the level of risk, and if you're on the receiving end of an IT project, if you're the business or the operational users, then you may be familiar with, or at least subconsciously can relate to, you're in some workshops and you read a 200-page functional spec and you think it sounds right, and then you cross your fingers for 6 months hoping that what the developers build is what you think you read in the functional specification and you think that was right, and then you end up with something at the end. And all of that time crossing your fingers is represented by the risk of no value delivered, and you're hoping that what is delivered in the end meets the expectations and meets the needs of the business. Obviously, if you're delivering incrementally in typically, say, a 2-week sprint, a 2-week period of design, development, build, test, then that risk is far less. You're maybe a product owner, the one defining the business requirement, and you might be in a sprint planning meeting, and then it's only a maximum of, say, 2 or maybe 3 weeks before you see the results of what the developers understood you to mean, and for that to get presented back to you. So the time duration of the risk of getting it wrong is far less, But then conversely, the value that's available to you to deploy into your business operation and start getting a return on that investment is far greater, as you can see. So I'm not going to spend any more time talking about Scrum or Agile. I just wanted to set the scene, really, on the benefit and the reason why we advocate an Agile method and Agile-led project and a Scrum method. The next slide is somewhat scary if you've never seen it before, and I do not intend to talk through it in much detail, but simply to say that Agile is great and the Scrum methodology is great in a project team where you've got a close, tight-knit team of people working on one business application delivery. But obviously many of you will be involved with large-scale programs of work. Maybe, if it was a waterfall-led project, there might be 100 developers. There might be 20 business analysts. There might be a whole army of testers. So how does Agile scale to a program-led approach? And it does very easily. It's really important to keep the same principles of regular synchronization across the multiple teams in the same way that one of the strengths of Scrum is regular synchronization amongst individual people within the team. So you just extrapolate that to the next level of synchronization across teams. So you can see here a scalable model. And if any of you are familiar with the Scaled Agile framework, SAFe for short, you'll maybe recognize this or aspects of it. And that is not by coincidence. There's various flavors of program level Agile delivery, and SAFe is as good as any of them. But there's a number of principles here which I just want to draw your attention to. So if we look at the top half, product management, it's the same as being a product owner in a Scrum team. You need a committee or a team of people leading the product design of your overall business outcomes at the program level. And typically that forum is made up of the product owners who are represented in the individual Scrum teams. Program level epics. If an epic is a big thing, a big feature that then is decomposed into user stories at a Scrum level, it's the same at a program level. With a vision and a roadmap leading into a program level backlog, just the same as you'd have for a Scrum level individual team backlog where they're taking stories off that backlog into each 2-week sprint. The same can just be rolled up to the program level where you've got a program level backlog taking off epics that then cascade down into the team backlogs. And you can see across the top, really important to have these overarching roles of program management, a solution architect that's working across the teams, user experience to coordinate and synchronize the user experience across everything that's being built by the different teams, the lead business analyst, often a system team that is looking after the infrastructure, platform, DevOps tooling, and facilitating the individual team's productivity. And I think that really is the key, in the same way that the Agile Manifesto talks about servant leadership. It's the same principle for this program level team. It's not command and control. It's servant level leadership at the program level to facilitate and enable the individual project feature teams to be as productive as possible. And then we can have N number of different feature teams delivering in their standard sprint approach, Scrum approach. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I just wanted to give those introductions to Agile, to give a taster of scaling Agile to the next level. I could obviously take the whole session on that, but we're trying to mix and have a good different level of input. So I'm going to hand over to Ankur and Colleen now. They're already mic'd up and ready to go. So over to you guys. We're going to have questions at the end. So just to keep the flow going, then remember your questions, and then we'll hopefully have time to have questions at the end. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Matt. Hopefully everybody can hear.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So my name is Ankur Saini. I'm a program manager at GSA. So everybody know what GSA means?
Yes. No.
I mean, we're the government. We love our acronyms, so we're going to throw 200 of them out to you today. So my primary role is supporting Colleen and her organization with their mission-critical application the GSA GREX is not a dinosaur, but it's GSA's real estate exchange. Their flagship application that manages the whole leasing process. In my role, the way I would define my success criteria is to make sure that that application is fit for purpose and fit for use on an everyday basis. Obviously, that requires a lot of coordination between operations support, development teams, help desk, and of course, the National Office of Leasing, which is where Colleen comes in.
So I am actually Ankur's counterpart, and lucky us in the government, everyone's a program manager or project manager. It really just means we're awesome. I have been a program manager for 3 years now with the Office of Leasing. Prior to that, I was the product owner and project manager for the GREX application we'll be talking about today. Prior to that, I was a leasing specialist, so I'm not just a product owner, but I was a user. That being said, I have worked with, thank you. So currently in my role, it is my job to define and communicate the vision for our Office of Leasing applications. We actually have a suite of 4 applications that help us manage our lease procurement process. I have 3 product owners who currently report to me. I mentor and coach them through the Scrum, the Agile process that we have in place in order to deliver solutions quickly. That being said, next slide, please. You have the clicker, okay. So actually, in case you're not aware, the Public Building Service, which is the primary consumer of GREX, we have a $5.5 billion lease inventory that we actually use GREX in order to manage all of the procurement activities associated with those leases. So if we are buying additional space or new space, we have to use this system. We have a user base of about 3,000 folks. It is leasing specialists, contracting officers who write the contracts, as well as broker contractors who represent the government out to the real estate market if needed. We do use the tool. Initially, it was looked at as a BPM tool. It was intended to standardize processes across 11 regions that are geographically dispersed and varying resources in each of those regions. So we were working to standardize that project management. We were also looking to collect data, specifically reporting data, but also data associated with or used for developing templates and documents that are policy compliant.
So GREX as it stands right now is built on Appian portal. It's about 5 years old. We're using an on-premise installation with an Oracle backend, and it integrates with a lot of other GSA systems and services, including single sign-on, identity management, electronic document management repository. So we like to make things complicated, so we've done that very handsomely.
So that being said, no system is perfect. I'm sure most of us who have worked with applications, we've had great successes and big challenges. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the varying facets of any IT project and how they relate to our experience with the GREX application specifically. Obviously, you have business needs, you have the technology that meets those needs, and then you have the money that you need to pay for it. We actually did come out with a very well-defined business need. We knew we needed a workflow management tool. We looked at a variety of options, looked at Appian as being a very robust tool for us to build this particular application on. It had all of the BPM bells and whistles that we were looking for, and also had the added dashboarding and reporting that was important to us. And then from a financing perspective, we're the government, so we have money, but we don't have unlimited resources. As a core application that supports a $5.5 billion real estate inventory, we do get allocated a little bit of money, but we do have to figure out the right ways to spend it. From a challenge perspective, in each one of these facets, specifically with GREX, business needs were well defined, but we weren't necessarily as prescient about thinking about what it would be like when we actually put it into practice. Similar to what Matt was saying earlier, you write things on a piece of paper, you cross your fingers, and you hope for the best. And then when you go to actually use it, it's like, it checks the box, but that's not really what we intended. So we were looking at a happy path. Most of the system was designed across that like perfect process. In leasing, we found that there is no perfect process. There's no perfect region, and there's no perfect project. So we were hoping for something, we needed something a little more flexible. It was also designed at a specific point in time. So August 2013, we designed it based on existing policy and regulation and processes that were in place. Well, guess what? Those change all the time. And we were having a really hard time keeping up with those changes in practice. While we want to change our processes quickly, and we are the government, so we're kind of a slow-moving train, generally speaking, we did find that we had a lot more difficulty changing them because of the very refined and defined process that we had put into place in the system. From a technology perspective, we were really happy to select Appian as the platform, but from a design perspective, as a business, I think what we designed, what we thought we wanted, we got that. It was just very hard for us to maintain it. Anytime changes came down, they were very complex to implement. They were really, really hard to put into place and do well and do cleanly. It was also very difficult for us to respond to changing user needs. And that's kind of where the finance and contracting come into place. So for the government, if you've ever dealt with a government procurement, it's long, to say the least. You may identify a need today, and it can take 6 months for you to get a contract out the door, and then you do your functional requirements document and develop that, and then it's been 8 months to a year that has gone by, and those needs have changed, and you are now already behind the 8 ball. So those are some of the challenges that we continuously experience throughout the project.
So my engagement with GREX has been more recent than Colleen's is. Colleen was there when the initial build was done. So I'll give you a true story. It's Halloween 2016. My day one at GSA. I just signed up to be a program manager, important job. And the outgoing PM is introducing me to other staffers at GSA, saying, hey, meet Ankur, he's going to be the new GREX PM. And his reaction to this whole introduction is like, look at this, he's going to be the new GREX PM. And the other ones are like, oh, great. So like, that's odd. Must be a popular system around here. Those are not the words that came to my mind. But then over the next few weeks, I realized what the issues were going on. It's just, oh, this is not built right. We're late here. Oh, the business is not giving us requirements, or they keep changing their mind all the time. Then in my head, these are all symptoms of an underlying disease, and we're trying to cure symptoms and not disease. So the purpose of this master feedback loop is that it sort of gives you a tool to analyze and cure the disease versus curing the symptom. You're late because something's not working, not because the developer is lazy or he slept on code. That is usually not the case. So what we're trying to understand with this master feedback loop is people need to do their job. That's their first requirement. The system actually gives them a technology and a tool to do that job. And as Colleen said, that system is dependent on 3 variables: technology, the business need, and the money that's around it. And in that environment, it can move around based on how those variables change. So we need to manage what is changing, and when it's changing. So using this feedback loop, you need to continuously ask. The faster you ask, the more in tune your system is. But on a weekly, daily, hourly, whatever makes sense to you, ask yourself, is my system giving the users all the tools they need to do their job on an everyday basis? And is the system fit for use, as in, is it available 99.9% of the time if that's your requirement? Does it have enough capacity to accommodate 3,000 users? Does it have enough of a security built into it that complies with your regulation? All those questions need to be asked as frequently as possible to keep up with times, and every so often, we don't do that. So how did we jumpstart our transformation journey into this agile world where our system is more in tune with what we're looking for?
So I referred to the challenges and obstacles that GREX specifically faced, particularly after its initial rollout, and really they've sort of plagued us for the past 5 years. And generally speaking, I prefer to look at challenges not as failures, but as opportunities for improvement. Where have I learned? If I've learned something from an experience, whether it was good or bad, it is never a failure, in my opinion. Take that for what you will. But we did look at this, myself and Ankur's predecessor, and talked about like, what can we do better? Because obviously we're struggling here, we're behind the ball, we want to do better. Our developers want to do better. No one wants to be responding to an angry customer, right? So how can we move forward with this? At the time, we were contemplating a transition from the Appian portal-based application that we were on to move into Tempo. That being said, we also looked at our existing processes and the way that they were designed and developed and knew that we couldn't just take what we had and put it in Tempo. So we saw this as a real opportunity for us to redefine what those requirements were. What do my users need, and can this solution meet that need? So we really took the opportunity to go back to our user community and say, what is it that you want? Because when we went forward the last time, we maybe didn't include them in the conversation as much as we should have. We also wanted to see if it could provide the flexibility for us so we can implement the changes we need, people could get their job done, but also at a national level, we could do the oversight that we so desperately need in a procurement environment, and be able to manage workload for our regional employees. We also recognized that the problem that we were having was not GREX specific, right? It was the way that we were architecting and delivering solutions, because I have a few applications that I work on and they all had very similar challenges. So we actually got some funding after much begging and some executive support to do a proof of concept for GREX. And it was really twofold. It was kick the tires on the Appian Tempo application, but it was also looking at whether or not we as a business line were ready to support something as involved as an agile implementation. Wow.
Had nothing to do with it.
I did not do that.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm a really bad dancer.
Get up and dance. Come on. It's part of the presentation.
Should we talk over it? Should we rap? Can sing? Do the chicken dance? I don't know.
All right. I mean, we'll
Go ahead and talk. It's getting louder.
Are we good? We're good? Yeah, we're good. Just talk loud.
You just go ahead and talk louder. This is fantastic. I'm like, I'm not wearing anything that has music on it. This is also not my jam, so.
Why don't you just keep going? I'm sure they can hear you. Just carry on going.
Go ahead.
It's not, I don't think it's bad.
All right. We'll keep going.
It's an agile environment.
It's an agile environment. We're going to adapt. Let's go. All right, so. Is my mic even on?
I don't know.
I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, you are. Okay.
All right, so the other thing that happened was to create a perfect storm, that an opportunity presented itself for us to basically redraft our contract. Our existing contract was coming up on its last option year. We had the opportunity to make it more agile versus a very fixed scope contract, and we ended up doing that. It's like a playlist.
This is amazing. So go. Ooh. Be okay if it wasn't getting louder and louder.
You gotta work on your projection.
I know. I like scream.
I don't work on my rap game while I can hear, so otherwise it'd be all right.
You want to just give it a shot? It's very distracting, to be honest.
Oh.
There you go. Snaps, okay.
We are back.
No, you're not back. Now you gotta yell.
Well, I am on now?
Yeah, okay.
Had to be me.
Yes, of course.
All right, so we're changing our contract. What we ended up doing is we not only made it more flexible to allow not fixed scope activities into the contract, but we also included adaptive and perfective maintenance in addition to the corrective and preventive maintenance that is usually included on an operations and maintenance contract. What that allows you to do is basically something changes in the business environment, you can change your system. Otherwise, it was your left arm and an eye, usually for changing anything. So don't want people with one eye walking around. All right, so now that everybody's ready, the business is happy to support Agile, the IT organization's pushing for Agile. If you have a contract that supports Agile, next thing to do is actually do Agile. Right? So this is when you actually go and start building stuff. So we are currently redesigning G-Rex to move off Portal onto the Tempo platform. It's supposed to be like a year-long initiative to deliver an MVP. And then we're also conducting Agile on O&M activities, Scrum-based process, 2-week sprints, delivering 2 weeks maintenance releases, because at the end of the day, G-Rex is a live system. People have immediate needs that need to be serviced. Yes, the long-term pain will go away when the new system comes in, but by then, we need to resolve some of the near-term issues. And I think it's working. If you look at our approval ratings, they're heading in the right direction. They're still not there yet, but I think we'll see a big jump when we switch over to the actual new system.
We have a pretty grumpy user base, so the fact that it went up at all, we're pretty pumped about. So I want to talk a little bit about a deep dive into the master feedback loop. One of the things to keep in mind, it's that little process, it's not static. There are a lot of players and a lot of things to consider as we move forward with an Agile implementation. And for us, one of the most important things, recognizing that maybe we missed the mark the first time around, particularly with user engagement, is really understanding what is it that you need? Understanding that you is a day-to-day user, but also what does central office need to get out of the application? And what we heard from people is we need flexibility, we need the tools that we use outside of the system to be in the system. From a reporting standpoint and a central office standpoint, we need oversight, we need to be able to implement some of our reporting needs, and we need to be able to monitor the work that's being done. Unfortunately, like I said before, we couldn't just do a simple lift and shift, so we do have some processes in place that we are developing, but overall, they're very small processes, they're very short. Rather than the long linear processes we had before, they are user-driven processes. So one of the other things that we've actually done in order to figure out what users need, we hired a product owner from one of our regions. So someone who used the G-Rex application for the past 5 years, who really has insight and understands what a user needs, but also has great communication skills, is really able to collaborate with a variety of different personalities. He is actually going to be here tomorrow. He's from the Miami area. He's wonderful, and hopefully, if you'd like, I can give you the opportunity to meet him. But he's really helped to help us define what those needs are and have those needs really feed the vision. We also established a change control board, so we have regional representation and stakeholder representation from a variety of folks. We do talk to them and elicit their needs regularly, which I'll talk about in a moment. But generally speaking, we're letting them drive the development with the understanding that anything that we develop also has to serve the overarching needs of the organization. We talked a lot about vision, right? We're right now in the early stages or mid stages of developing. We know what we need day one. We have our near-term vision defined, but we also have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at long-term. Where is our organization trying to head, and how can the system support that? So we are working at where does the product need to be right now, and where is it going to be? And that being said, that CCB group, that change control board, is extremely instrumental in helping us define that. And then they're also sharing that with their regional folks so that they can provide feedback and they can advocate for all of those individuals. So everyone feels like they have a seat at the table, which is one of the places where we really fell short last time around. And then finally, the roadmap. We are working towards a minimum viable product. So right now, we're using the Moscow approach. I would assume everyone knows this, but it's the must-haves, the could-haves, the should-haves, the could-haves, and the won't-haves. And we're really having that CCB group look at the needs that they've identified, the needs, I use the term loosely, and really decide, what do I have to have day one? What is really critical for me to do my job? And we've stressed and worked with them to understand we don't want to start laying bricks before we have a strong foundation. We're really trying to develop something at this point that is going to be a basis for future improvements and future enhancements. That being said, we also regularly look at the roadmap and the needs that they've identified and defined, and look and see if it still fits that vision. And does it still meet the end user's needs? Because ultimately, if it doesn't meet any of those, we shouldn't be doing it.
All right, so we're a little stretched for time, so I'm going to go fast on this slide. So once we have the roadmap, we just basically ask our developers, can you build it using it? And our way of doing it is two things. Does it have clearly defined acceptance criteria? And can they build a WBS to show what the work needs to be done? And if then, they go ahead and build it. And since user adoption is at the forefront of this effort, we have a three-pronged approach of showing it to the user before we actually accept it. The product owner gets an early look to see if things are being built their way. Then the CCB group needs to gets to test all of that. And then our developer team does a demo to all of them. So by doing that, we make sure what is being built is fit for purpose. And then we deploy it. Well, so we have 4 different environments through which the release progresses. Some people call it an overkill, but we are the government, so awesome overkill. But at least all those 4 environments solve different purposes. One is for demoing, one is for IVNV to test, security to scan, one of them is to do testing, the other one's to test integrations. So they all serve their purpose. It's not really overkill, but everybody has their opinions. So good. And once you deploy it, then your live user audience can give you more feedback through the help desk and otherwise. So to wrap it up, if you're thinking about implementing Agile in your project, forget Scrum, forget Kanban. The often most forgotten thing about Agile is the fundamental of Agile. What does the Agile Manifesto say? Does anybody know? One person. Awesome. What it says is, we're finding better ways to build software by doing it and by helping others do it. If you're using a process, make it better every day. That's all it is. Doesn't need to be Scrum, doesn't need to be Kanban, doesn't need to be safe, or whatever brand you want to go. Just do things better every day, and you'll get there. So that's our little spiel. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And for the music.
Guys, well done for making it through the distractions of the music and goodness knows what else. We'll keep moving straight on. So Duncan's going to take the floor now. Duncan has been working for me for 5 years, I think, in the UK.
Yep.
One of our most experienced delivery leaders in our professional services business. So thank you, Duncan.
It'll be super quick. Can you guys hear me? Good. I feel like I should have prepared a Spotify playlist for the background music. Have you got the clicker? Ah.
You should do all that.
There we go. Thank you. So as Matt said, I've been working for Appian for just over 5 years. I think it was April 2013 when I started. I'm a director of PS, so working very closely with Matt and his team. I've been delivering projects across Europe, across the UK, for various different industries, so retail, manufacturing, publishing, financial services, insurance, and so forth. So in my time as a person delivering projects with Appian for these different companies, I've seen a lot of processes that work really well. I've seen some processes that don't work that well. And I suppose to kind of echo your points, Ankur, it's all about getting feedback and continuous improvement. And I wanted to today just take a few minutes to highlight some of the things that I've found have repeatedly worked well, and particularly in a kind of more scaled Agile approach. So Matt was talking about the program delivery and scaled Agile. I've delivered quite a lot of projects where we're dealing with teams from across different departments within organizations, across different countries. And so I wanted to really talk about some of the things that I've found work well in that kind of scaled Agile program environment. So first of all, hardening sprints. Who's heard or used hardening sprints? Hands up. So 25%. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about with hardening sprints, and apologies to any purist Agile people in the room, because it's not officially part of the Agile Manifesto. A hardening sprint really is an opportunity to align all of the teams as a whole. So if you are working with discrete teams in different countries, there's obviously a cultural aspect, and it's more relevant for me working in Europe because we often work with offshore partners, different teams across different countries. It's a means to synchronize the team as a whole, to make sure they're aligned with what the vision of the product owners is and the program delivery team. And I will talk to you a little bit about where a hardening sprint fits in. So I'll take you through a very typical software development lifecycle, but with a kind of program level focus, if you like. So we'd have a release planning session. So release 1, we align as a whole team as to exactly what we're going to be delivering. And this is all going to be very familiar. We start our development sprints and we carry on doing our development sprints. And then once we feel that we've delivered the required functionality for our first sprint, and we're ready to start pushing it through to production, what I've found is that a hardening sprint at this point is really valuable. It kind of satisfies two main objectives. So the first one is it ensures a successful release. You've been working hard, your whole team, your dispersed teams have been working very hard. And perhaps at the very beginning when you're doing your release planning, what's actually been delivered now is not necessarily exactly what you had in mind. The nature of Agile is you change and you flex and you adapt and learn and you take the empirical evidence of how you've been working and what you've been building. And so it's very rare to find that the thing as you envisaged it at the beginning is going to be exactly the same as it is at the end. So it allows you the opportunity to review what has actually been delivered, and it allows you to be very articulate and very clear to your user team what they're going to be getting. There's nothing worse than promising them one thing and delivering another. So that little bit of time between when you finish the development and when you actually deploy the released application gives you the opportunity to be very clear about what it is the users are going to be getting, how they're going to be using it, and how it's going to impact their operational day-to-day usage. Also, the reality is that sometimes there'll be bugs left in the application. They may be very trivial bugs, but there may be bugs nonetheless. And so it gives you an opportunity to, again, crystallize what those outstanding bugs are so that your user community knows about them and that you're being very transparent. The second area is around feeding into the next release, right? So you've got the opportunity in the hardening sprint to really understand where your pipeline of work is. It allows you to do things like solution design. So if you know what roughly the next piece of work is going to be, you might not know how you're going to deliver it. You might not know exactly what technical solution you're going to come up with. So it gives you a really good opportunity to get your architects involved. You may have seen on the slide that Matt showed, that complex scaled Agile slide, there was quite a discrete little piece. It's called the architectural runway, and it's basically getting a far enough view ahead for the architects of the solution to understand what's coming, to get the right people in place, to actually start building some of the architectural components, to kind of just keep feeding the delivery team and to make sure that no one stops because we've hit a brick wall. We also have this concept of spikes. Has anyone heard of a thing called a spike in Agile? So a spike is not a story, it's not a defect, it's not a bug, it's effectively a piece of research and development time. So if we know that there's a particular technical solution that we're not quite sure whether it's going to work or it's a bit kind of embryonic, a spike is really a piece of effort, a piece of time for the relevant people to go and investigate it, prove it out, make sure it works, and then it feeds into the then delivery. And so the process goes over and over again. You cycle through another successful release, another feed into the next release planning, and so on and so forth. My next lesson learned. I really like this photo. If you look on Google for construction fails, there's some really classic things, people building toilets where you can't get in the door of the toilet and building lampposts in the middle of a road. It kind of reflects my next point, really, sequencing and coordination. Again, having lots of teams, lots of people involved in a major, large-scale corporate project is difficult. You have to get people really in tune with what you're trying to deliver. And it's not just technical. I think people need to understand that it's way more than that. It's cultural. The incentives for a group of people in, India or East Europe or APAC may be different from those in the UK or the US. So you need to really tune in to some of the more softer elements of program delivery to make sure that people do understand why we're doing what we're doing, make sure they're incentivized to do those things. It could be practical, logistical. It could be that people need desks and facilities need to be involved, and we need to get a new office. It's a much broader range of topics than just technical. The schedules are very important as well, and I wanted to talk to you briefly about a common scheduling conundrum that I've seen in many projects, and I'm sure you have too, and it's around integration. More and more industries nowadays are using service layers, MuleSoft, TIBCO, and so on, these ESBs. And what we'd like to make sure is that when we come to delivering a piece of functionality that requires an integration layer, is rather than building everything to do with that integration layer at the same time, so the Appian piece that consumes this API, whatever it may be, the MuleSoft piece that delivers the API, and the piece of software on the other end of it, don't do them all at once, because with the best will in the world, some assumptions will get made that may not be correct, or some communication may break down to mean that actually, what's being delivered hasn't been quite interpreted correctly. So I would really endorse planning this kind of work in. So make sure that the pieces of functionality that you are dependent on for your Appian delivery have been delivered, at least in the sprint beforehand. Because if they're not, and you find that there are problems in the current sprint, then you've kind of suddenly got yourself a 2-week delay, because you know that the guys who need to give you your APIs have still got some work to do. They will finish it in this sprint, and then you've got another sprint to then plug into it and refine it and tune it. So I've seen this a few times, and I think it's a really important lesson that I'd like to share out with you. Finally, retrospective. So again, this plays very well to the GSA story. It's about listening and feeding back, and a very open dialogue and honest dialogue about what's working well, what's not working well, how can we improve things. And it's really those last 2 points that are really important, because this is nothing to do with the applications that you're building. This is absolutely to do with the process that you follow and how you build them. So I guess most of you are familiar with the retrospectives. Unfortunately, if time's tight, what's the first thing that people stop doing? It's retrospectives, generally. And it's really important to me that retrospectives happen, because the risk is, if they don't happen, the problems that are manifesting within the team will just get worse and worse and worse, and that time that you need will just get less and less and less. So it's a bit of a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, really. So most people will tend to do kind of feature team retrospectives, so within a Scrum team, kind of weeding out very honest views about how things can be improved, what's not working so well. In a kind of scaled program level approach, what we like to try and do is get that retrospective concept at a program level. So you've got very good visibility from the management team. The feedback from the individual Scrum teams gets fed up through the chain, and ultimately it leads to, well, A, successful delivery, and B, it can influence how you work as a team for future deliveries as well. It could even influence the actual way the delivery direction goes. That's all from me. We've got about 25 seconds left, so I'll hand you over.
Good job.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Duncan. Thank you. Some quick resources to signpost you to. The playbook and community resources on Appian. Appian community site has got various content and collateral on Agile. And the Scaled Agile Framework, SAFE, that we referred to, the bottom link there is the URL for that. We have several executive advisors here that work for Appian, and if you know them or would like introducing to one of those, they will also be able to talk to you. And of course, anyone from the Appian team as well.